So, as we enter this next season at Wayfarers, we are going to be trying a bit of an experiment. Like all experiments, it could go well, could kind of blow up in our faces, but hey, that's okay. We're in this thing together. What we're going to be doing is a season of telling our own stories, of giving testimonies. Now, I know many people, when they hear that, will start to kind of clench up. I think those words are pretty loaded, and in many churches, there's a very specific way they're used, and that is telling a story of conversion, telling your testimony of how God came and changed your life. I think the problem is in a lot of communities, those words are almost loaded, and we're almost expected to follow kind of the model of Saint Paul, whose life was going in one direction, God dramatically intervenes, and then it goes into another direction. And that's not to say that that isn't the case. There are people who that is their life and their story, but I think the that Paul's story has become over idealized in many communities, and unless there's some kind of a dramatic event or conversion, it's considered like not real. It didn't actually count. When you look at most of the people in our communities, if you look at most of the people who were following Jesus, including like Peter, their life wasn't like that. It's this kind of slow growing process of understanding of who God is and God getting into different areas of life. So, first off, I want to say that is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about conversion experiences when we're tell our story. The other problem with that in many people's lives is we're often talking about something that happened a long time ago. And I'm more interested for kind of this exercise in talking about what is God doing right now? Where are you seeing God? Where are you not seeing God? Let's talk about kind of where we're at with God and what we feel we're being invited into and teaching. So we're testifying more in the older sense of witnessing, pointing out what God is up to in our own spiritual lives, in the spiritual lives of those around us, in the world in general. And I think there's a lot to learn. Again, we say many weeks at Wayfarers, we think everyone there has things to teach and everyone has things to learn. And so my hope is this exercise is one in which we can learn from one another and be affirmed in our own awareness of God and what He's doing, kind of in our lives. So to give this testimony, whatever, it's not something that people are going to need to prepare for. It's something that I'd like you to think through a little bit of what you're going to say, but these are the questions that we'll simply be answering because it's not all we're going to be doing these weeks. What parts of your life are the most fulfilling or bring you the deepest joy? What parts of your life are the most difficult, confusing, or painful? Where is God in these consolations and desolations? And those phrases, consolations and desolations, come from a classic spiritual exercise written by Ignatius of Loyola, in which at kind of the end of the day or over longer periods of time or reflection, people would ask themselves in this exercise called the examine, what consolations am I being offered by God? In what ways is God there in the joys and the heart and the things that seem to be working in my life and my spiritual world? And desolations, where is God absent? What doesn't seem to be going well? What are things that I'm not being comforted and feel off or jarring? So we used that for those first two questions, right? So what are the parts of your life that are most fulfilling, bring the deepest joy? What are the parts of life that are the most difficult, confusing, or painful? Where is God in these consolations and desolations? And finally, what is God inviting you into, or what is God teaching you these days? And it does not have to be something that feels or sounds, spiritually deep or whatever. This is just an honest assessment. Hey, here's kind of where God and I are at. Here is the interaction that we are continuing to have. The other part of these kind of testimonies I want us to do is the person kind of sharing, here's what's going on with God and I. We will then kind of use, rather than this being about all of us talking, we're going to use that to transition into spending some time with one of the Psalms. So the Psalms, these prayers, these songs that are throughout the Bible, I think have been collected for a couple of reasons. One is to kind of teach us the ways in which we can approach God, right? There's some pretty rough Psalms. There's some very beautiful praise-like Psalms. I think they are meant to kind of change us. They are meant to express the ways in which we can connect with God and talk to God. And so the second half of this, after we answer these questions, is I would like each of us to pick a psalm that in some way expresses something about our spiritual lives these days. It's not going to be a perfect expression. We are finding ourselves in this, but it's a psalm we just feel connected with, that we want to kind of share with the group, that we think that God has been teaching us through, or expresses something that's going on with God and us right now. And then we're going to bring it for the group. We're going to kind of read it slowly, kind of a lectio divina style, in which we are not just looking to hear content or understand. We are listening closely, saying the Holy Spirit is with us, and things that jump out at us, images or words, phrases that stick with us, is likely the Holy Spirit prompting us and saying, hey, there is something here for you as well. So after we answer those questions and give kind of this little bit of a story of here's what's going on with God and I, we're going to offer up a psalm. So I think Psalm what? Expresses something in my spiritual life these days. And when we read this together, look for, and so we want to give each other kind of a lens, a little bit of here's why I picked this psalm, here's something I think that's going on, here's how it connects to me. It may not be how someone else connects with the psalm, maybe not what God says or is doing to them, but again, you picked this psalm as an expression of something going on in your life, something to connect with, and so we are going to kind of offer, as we read this psalm, kind of a lens, a way of understanding something that we saw in there that people can take or leave as they go into this. So this week, I will be, of course, explaining this. I'm going to be putting on our sheet here those questions as people can take home as a bookmark. And then we're going to have folks kind of be volunteering to lead these, both to answer some of these questions of how they're interacting with God right now or not. And then they are going to be leading through this psalm that they have picked, a time of quiet and just sitting with those psalms. So, of course, if I'm going to propose this crazy idea, I need to be willing to go first. So what parts of my life are the most fulfilling and bring you the deepest joy? I think right now at the end of the summer, one of the deepest parts of joy is just getting to be with my family, with my children. Obviously, I spend a lot of time with them, and I'm going to lose that soon with school starting. But also the evenings are so beautiful this time of year. I love summer. I love being outdoors. I love being in the mountains, and I think I'm trying to kind of drink that last things in of this, just a sense of a slightly slower pace, although it's been a bit of a crazy summer. And just, enjoying being with people. I think another piece of that is not just my immediate family, but my larger family at Wayfarers. I've just really enjoyed this season, spending time with so many of you, doing the meals on Sundays, meals with our men's group, just serving beside you, watching our kids play soccer, whatever. It feels like there's a lot of life going on together, and I've enjoyed that piece during the summer as well. What are some parts of my life that are the most difficult, confusing, and painful? I will be the first to say that I think I'm in a pretty easy season right now for just life circumstances and myself. Most of my frustrations, most of my dissonances are pretty small compared to some of the things that I've had to go through, and I think they feel pretty petty compared to some of the things I know people are going through in the world around me. And so I want to acknowledge that, and I want to just say that's okay. It's okay to be in those seasons, right? I don't have to conjure up some deep darkness because to hang with everyone else, because I know that is there in people's lives right now. Right now, I'm thankful that they're pretty small. So long disclaimer, but the most difficult, confusing, painful parts of my life, I think, have to do with just kind of this fragmented feeling that I have so much of the time. I have a lot of different roles of responsibility as a parent, as these kind of all these part-time jobs I have. And I feel like things are often getting away from me, that I can't give my full attention, my full focus to many things, and I just get frustrated with the busyness, like I said, just kind of the fragmented feel I have at the times, and it really does get under my skin. I get really tired, I get really angry at just the pace of life and seeing the way we live so much of the time as a society. And so I'm very blessed and lucky that it's kind of a general pain right now. It's not a specific one that I'm not doing that poorly in. But where is God in these times of consolation and desolation? I think God is aware in these times of consolation in the fact that I'm at times just aware of God's presence. It feels like God is close, that God is obviously in beautiful things like nature, things that I enjoy. But even in the busyness, when I'm running around and feeling fragmented, I have rare moments when I recognize that God is there and strengthening me. But a lot of the time, I also feel kind of in those fragmented times that I probably should be drawing near to God. I should be getting refreshed and refilled by God. But it just kind of feels like another damn thing to do at times. And so when I'm feeling fragmented, when I'm feeling too busy and hurried, I will often turn to other things, which I think is foolish on my own part, but it's what I do. I don't turn to God for that strengthening and that refreshment nearly enough. It tends to be when I'm feeling relaxed, when I'm enjoying being around people or a moment of quiet. And going into a season when that's changing, that's something that I would like to be working on, an awareness in the midst of some of that chaos of God's goodness and presence, because I think that is usually the place that he wants to be working. It's not always in the good times or times of silence that God is going to be present for us. What is God inviting you into? What is God teaching you these days? I think I've alluded to one of those. I think an invitation from God that is always there for me is to join God in kind of the chaos, not just I only connect with God in these quiet times or things that feel very spiritual, reading my Bible or sitting in silence. I think the invitation is almost always from God to see the busyness, especially when it's for the sake of others, as service to both them and to Him, and to kind of enjoy God's presence in the midst of the chaos. I think I've had a feeling spiritually for a while that as I'm finishing up my doctorate, as some other kind of rhythms of my life are changing as my kids are getting older, that some kind of a change or a shift in focus is coming my way in the next couple years. It doesn't feel urgent, but I feel like I would like some more clarity from God on what those changes are. Is that just a feeling with finishing up school? Is there some other change? And I don't know. But I feel like the invitation for God a lot of the time has been not to be looking at the horizon, not to want answers, which I always do with God, but to just wait and be patient and to be present in some of those things that I'm doing. So that does not feel like a new conversation between God and I. That's been our conversation a lot lately. But I think that's kind of where I'm at. Still, God is saying, wait, be patient, see what I'm up to, and actually figure out my presence in front of you, both in the things you enjoy and in the things that make you a little bit crazy, like busyness and all the things that the other side of work that feel more like work, right? But for the second half of this, a psalm that I felt like expresses some of that waiting, that watching, that discernment that I think I'm asked to be in right now, is Psalm 90. It's a psalm that that was supposed to be from Moses, but it's one that I think is important for waiting and for discernment, using our time well. So I'll end this time by reading this a couple of times for us, kind of lectio style. But when we read it together, I see kind of two paths being offered here, which you probably heard in a lot of what I was saying as well. I think God invites us into kind of one of discernment and trusting God in His ways, or just doing things in our own way. I think in this psalm, it's expressed a lot of the time kind of as a wrath because God recognizes just the dryness and the stupidity and foolishness that we often choose rather than God's own ways. And so as I read this psalm, I see two paths, one in which we are kind of trusting God in his ways and allowing God's ways to give us some meaning in our choices in life, or there's another way which doesn't come out very well. So here is Psalm 90. Let's again read it through a couple of times, see if any words or phrases stick out to you. But that's kind of my testimony of what God is up to right now in my life. And I think Psalm 90 expresses some of that. So let me read that. A prayer of Moses, man of God. O Master, you have been our abode in every generation. Before the mountains were born, before you spawned the earth and the world, from forever to forever, you are God. You bring man back to the dust and say, turn back, humankind. For 1,000 years in your eyes are like yesterday gone, like a watch in the night. You engulf them with sleep. In the morn, they are like the grass that pauses, and by evening it withers and dies. For we are consumed in your wrath, and in your fury we are dismayed. You have set our transgressions before you, our hidden faults in the light of your face. For all our days slip away in your anger. We consume our years like a sigh. The days of our years are but 70 years, and if in great strength 80 years. And their pride is trouble and grief, for swiftly cut down we fly off. Who can know the strength of your wrath, as the fear of you is your anger? To count our days rightly instruct, that we may have a heart of wisdom. Come back, O Lord, how long? And have pity on your servants. Sate us in the morning with your kindness. Let us sing and rejoice all our days. Give us joy as the days you afflicted us, the years we saw evil. Let your acts be seen by your servants, and your glory by your children. And the sweetness of the Master our God be upon us, and the work of our hands firmly found for us. And the work of our hands firmly found. And one more time. O Master, you have been our abode in every generation. Before the mountains were born, before you spawned the earth and the world, from forever to forever, you are God. You bring man back to the dust and say, turn back, humankind. For 1,000 years in your eyes are like yesterday gone. Like a watch in the night, you engulf them with sleep. In the morn they are like the grass that pauses, by evening it withers and dies. For we are consumed in your wrath, and in your fury we are dismayed. You have set out our transgressions before you, our hidden faults in the light of your face. For all our days slip away in your anger. We consume our years like a sigh. The days of our years are but 70 years, and if in great strength 80 years. And their pride is trouble and grief, for swiftly cut down we fly off. Who can know the strength of your wrath, as the fear of you is your anger? To count our days rightly instruct, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Come back, O Lord, how long? And have pity on your servants. Sate us in the morning with your kindness. Let us sing and rejoice all our days. Give us joy as the days you afflicted us, the years we saw evil. Let your acts be seen by your servants, and your glory by their children. And the sweetness of the Master, our God, be upon us, and the work of our hands firmly found for us. And the work of our hands firmly found. So the next few weeks, that's all we will be doing together. Is we'll have different people kind of give a snapshot of kind of where they see God working, what is going on in their lives, and then we will each offer a psalm that we can spend some time together with God to learn from one another. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too.